Hi, and welcome to Supply Chain Management. This topic is about supply contracts. In the last few years, we have seen significant increase in the level of outsourcing. Companies outsource everything from manufacturing of a specific component to the design and assembly of the entire product. One important driver is the search for low-cost countries that allow producers and manufacturers to significantly reduce labor costs. At the same time, many companies in the Far East, especially in China, has developed significant capabilities to design and manufacture high-quality, low-cost products. Of course, the increased level of outsourcing implies that procurement function becomes critical for an OEM to remain in control. But what is an OEM? An OEM is an original equipment manufacturer, which is a company that produces components for use in production of a finished item, which is assembled by another company. Therefore, the company that builds the final product then sells the finished good to the retailer and ultimately to the end user. OEMs usually focus on selling business to business. So, whether if the company is a producer or manufacturer who buys raw materials, an OEM who produces components, or a retailer who buys a finished good and sell it to the customers. These components, either strategic or non-strategic, needs to be managed with a certain legal framework. Therefore, successful outsourcing or supplier relationship management necessitates a contract. And what is a contract? A contract is a legally binding agreement between a buyer and a seller that details what is expected and what is required from each party. There are different types of contracts for different types of components. Talking about strategic components, in these cases it is required an effective supply contract that coordinates the supply chain. Normally for strategic component, a long-term collaborative relationship is expected, while a different approach might be applied for non-strategic component. In this case, product can be purchased from different suppliers, and flexibility to market condition is perceived as the more important element than a permanent relationship with the supplier. In commodity, for example, oil, grain, cotton, steel, these items or these commodities are available from a large number of suppliers and can be purchased in spot market. Therefore, there are several elements that determine the organization's supply philosophy and thus enable the organization to select a proper contract. For example, are we trying to enter a long-term partnership, or it is just based on an arm's length relationship? Spot market. Is it long-term or short-term? We need to determine what is it for me versus what is it for you. Also, is it adversarial or collaborative relationship? Local versus global. Maximize versus minimize vendor base. So here, are we trying to collaborate with limited number of suppliers, small supply base, or maximum number of suppliers in a large vendor or supply base? Is it strategic or tactical? Talking about strategic component, effective procurement strategy requires the development of relationship with suppliers. This relationship can take many forms. It can be formal or informal to ensure the adequate supplies in a timely manner. The contracts addresses issues that arise between a buyer and a supplier, whether the buyer is a manufacturer who's buying raw materials from suppliers or an OEM purchasing component or a retailer buying a finished good. In a typical supply chain contract, the buyer and supplier will agree on the following terms. First of all, they need to agree on pricing and volume discount, trading terms, minimum and maximum purchasing quantity, the delivery lead time, the quality of product and materials, the return policy, and the length of the tender. There are different types of supply contracts used in purchasing strategic component. Here we will focus on 4 of them. The first one is buyback contracts. Then the second one, revenue sharing contracts, quantity flexibility contracts, and sale rebate contracts. Okay, let's start with the first one, buyback contract. Under this type of contract, seller agrees to buy back unsold goods from the buyer for some agreed upon price. It provides incentives for the retailers to buy more, as well as it provides a mean for supply chain to increase profit together, as well as sharing risk. Therefore, whatever extra quantities are bought by the retailer or by the buyer will be considered as a potential mean for selling items in anticipation of any stock out. And whatever is not sold during the contract period will be rebought again by the seller. A good example of that will be bookshops. We know that the publishers are encourage the retailers or the bookstores to buy extra copies of the book so that they will not run out of stock whenever the customers need them. In the same time, for any unsold book, the publisher will buy them back and they can sell them online or through another retailer. In this case, risk is shared and it provides incentives for the buyer or the bookstores to buy more items because he is confident that for whatever quantities they can resell them back to the publisher. The second type of contracts is revenue sharing contract. Under this type of contract, buyers share some of their revenues with the seller. This is balanced by a discount on a wholesale price. Therefore, retailer has incentive to buy more, given that if they buy more, they will get a discount, which is a good deal because they will buy the item at a lower price. And manufacturer has an incentive also to reduce the price as it is understood more will be ordered. Therefore, buyer and suppliers are sharing the revenue together. The third type is quantity flexibility contract. Here, supplier provides a full refund for unsold item upon an agreed quantity. So it has the same effect as buyback contract. Risk is shared, incentives for retailer to purchase more, and potential for profits to increase together. Under buyback contract, the supplier or the seller provide partial refund for all items, while under quantity flexibility contract, they provide full refund, yet for some items. The last type is sale rebate contract. And under this type of contract, a rebate paid by a supplier to the retailer for any item sold above a certain quantity. So it is like providing an incentive for the seller to buy more and to increase sales. Therefore, potential is created for increased profit for both partners. So the more the retailer sells more than the upon agreed limits or certain quantity, he will get a rebate or incentives. To summarize, buyback contract and revenue sharing contract achieve the objective of potential increasing supply chain wide profit through risk sharing. A collaborative approach to contract development will promote increasing supply chain wide profit. Such contracts will be more effective when combined with other cooperative practices, such as sharing forecast data, reducing lead time, vendor managed inventory, standardized product identification, and sharing of market intelligence.